history's worst crime. Millions of men, women, and children killed in the Holocaust. It led to history's worst miscarriage of justice.
The vast majority of the perpetrators of Nazi crimes against humanity, murder, rape, enslavement, torture, got off scot-free.
Thousands of Nazi war criminals escaped, many with inside help.
The American public has been lied to for over 50 years, and I think that's a disgrace.
Now, Unsolved History uses advanced technology to track Nazi war criminals across oceans and across time from a mysterious South American colony.
I thought I was submitted to kind of school of torture.
To the doorstep of Alois Brunner, today's most wanted Nazi.
There'd be no higher priority for law enforcement than to catch him and bring him to trial.
We hunt the most notorious killers of all time.
This is a bit suspenseful.
On Unsolved History, hunting Nazis. At a Nevada test lab, 21st century technology is about to help track down one of the 20th century's worst fugitives.
That's his picture.
Nazi Colonel Alois Brunner may still be alive, hiding under a false name.
Let's do an eye alignment on that.
But he may not be able to hide much longer.
Start the search.
Alois Brunner is not alone in his ability to evade capture.
Thousands of people responsible for the Holocaust escaped after World War II.
The Third Reich perfected mechanized mass murder. Hitler's forces systematically killed millions of men, women, and children. History has no greater crime and no greater miscarriage of justice.
Nazi criminals are going free every single day in this country and many others.
How did these war criminals escape? Have they continued their murderous ways? To uncover the truth, Unsolved History put together a special team of investigators. Identity recognition experts Jeff Jonas and Sherry McKenzie. Document examiners Barbara Torres and Wesley Gross. Forensic anthropologist Dr. Clyde Snow. Nazi hunter Eli Rosenbaum. And investigative journalist Yuki Goni. They'll combine their skills to track Nazis from the death camps of Europe to a school of torture in Chile, to a peaceful New England town, to what may be the home today of Alois Brunner, a top enforcer of the final solution.
If Alois Brunner is still alive, he is without question the most heavily implicated Nazi criminal alive in the world.
To get to Brunner, we start with lessons from the life and death of Auschwitz concentration camp doctor Joseph Mengele.
It was Joseph Mengele who frequently met the trains that brought in new shipments, so to speak, of Jewish victims, men, women, and children. It was Mengele who often stood there and waved prisoners to the right or the left. In one direction, if they were deemed capable of work, in the other, they were to be gassed almost immediately, murdered.
Mengele also performed grotesque experiments, fueled by his obsession with creating a pure Aryan race.
For countless Holocaust survivors around the world, Joseph Mengele was the personification of Nazi evil.
Mengele hid in Germany for 4 years after the war. Finally, he got a Red Cross passport under the name Helmut Gregor and set sail for Argentina.
He relied on his family's money and political influence in South America in order to live a relatively modest life Towards the end of his life, he was caught in a downward spiral, and in which he died really quite pathetically.
He lived in such fear that he kept a loaded pistol at his bedside. He believed the Israelis were behind every tree.
This shack on a small Brazilian farm was Mengele's final home.
In 1979, he had a stroke, passed away, and was buried under an assumed name. In 1985, finally, there was a concerted governmental effort to trace his fate. And very quickly, the trail of money from the Mengele Farm Equipment Company in Germany led to Brazil.
And it led to these bones, rumored to be Mengele's, but buried under someone else's name.
The bones, in an odd way, you might say that they're talking to us. They tell the truth, and they never forget.
Forensic anthropologist Dr. Clyde Snow led an international team that was brought together to determine whether this was really Joseph Mengele.
We'll need to take some measurements. First time I ever saw his bones, we walked into a room in the Forensic Pathology Institute in São Paulo. We were anticipating we were going to see Dr. Mengele, the angel of death. I think I was a little surprised when I walked in, and here he was laid out on the table.
Each fragment was carefully put together like parts of a once-living jigsaw puzzle.
We could tell, of course, that we were dealing with a male, probably European, age around 65, 75. We calculated his stature, but aside from that, we didn't see much except evidence of an old injury to the right hip.
As the forensic team did its work, German and American scientists performed a special comparison of the skull with photographs of Mengele.
You can see layer by layer how the skull matches the photograph of Mengele.
The way the skull and the photographs fit together was striking, but not conclusive. More evidence was needed. Dr. Snow's team had to find some way to compare the bones to Mengele's medical history. Finally, the discovery of Mengele's X-rays in a dentist's office outside Sao Paulo gave away his identity.
We had full dentures and also a lot of restorations in the lower teeth too. Once we were able to resolve it, we could give some closure to the families of the victims after nearly 50 years.
Mengele escaped the law, but he couldn't escape death.
Dr. Mengele lived under a false name, lived a false life, trying to escape his past. But in the long run, his bones told us who he was. He couldn't lie from the grave.
But that didn't end the bigger mystery of how Mengele and so many other Nazis got away after the war. Yuki Goni spent years digging through records in South America, the US, and Europe.
I was able to identify about 300 war criminals who came to Argentina. These include notorious Nazi officers such as Joseph Mengele, Adolf Eichmann in charge of the final solution to the Jewish question, Walter Rauff, who invented the mobile gas van.
To understand who helped these Nazis get into South America, Goni began a seemingly impossible task. Goni tried to find a common link between the fleeing Nazis, a pattern that would reveal how so many slipped out of Europe. He spent tireless hours here at the Buenos Aires Migration Office. Nazi war criminals, mixed in with regular immigrants, would check in under false identities, then move on to their new lives.
These are the entry files for the hundreds of thousands of immigrants who came to Argentina after the war.
Goni started with the name Helmut Greger, the alias used by Joseph Mengele.
I went through these books one by one, looking for the names of the Nazi war criminals.
Then he matched each one to ship logs and immigration entry forms, card after card, line after line, year after year.
And this is a ship called the North King, which arrived in 1949.
Finally, there it was.
And here I found it at the bottom of the page. Gregor Helmut, he's actually Joseph Mengele, age 38, profession mechanic, Catholic, and he arrives under Red Cross passport, number 100-501.
This was just one of hundreds of discoveries to come. This is the entry document for SS Colonel Adolf Eichmann, the bureaucrat who kept the Holocaust running at a ferocious pace. Like Mengele, he fled through Italy under an assumed name.
By 1950, when Eichmann decided it was time to leave Germany because it had become too dangerous for him, he got in contact with the escape organization. These people brought him out of Germany and took him to Italy. There in Italy, he already had for 2 years these Argentine entry papers made out in the name of Ricardo Clement, which is the alias he used. With these Argentine travel papers, he went to the Red Cross and asked for a passport, which he got.
In 1960, after a decade with his family in the Buenos Aires suburbs, Eichmann was captured and brought to Israel, where he was tried, convicted of crimes against humanity, and executed. Goni says Argentine dictator Juan Perón made a virtual business of helping Nazis resettle in South America.
Intelligence services in the United States and Britain were involved, and President Perón was personally involved in Argentina.
How did some of the worst murderers of World War II get away? The rat line, secret escape routes that ferreted Nazis out of Europe, often with the help of Allied intelligence and Catholic Church officials. Next, Unsolved History follows the bloody path of one of the masters of the rat line. The horror of the Holocaust defies understanding. So does its aftermath.
People who committed some of the ghastliest crimes in recorded human history, mass murder, enslavement, torture, rape, most of those Nazi perpetrators managed to escape justice.
How did they get away? Many slipped out of Europe through secret escape routes called the rat line. For Joseph Mengele, Adolf Eichmann, and Walter Rauff, the rat line led to new lives in South America. SS Colonel Alois Brunner fled to the Middle East. Brunner may still be there today, living in a comfortable apartment, confident that his identity and location are well protected. The scrawl on this envelope and this grainy photograph may yet bring him to justice. But the trail of Nazi war criminals leads not just to South America and the Middle East. It leads right to the heart of the U.S. in more ways than one.
There were tens of thousands of Nazi perpetrators in Europe when the war came to an end. Some hundreds at least, perhaps more, came to North America. The fact that the Nazi criminals, the vast majority of them, were allowed to go unpunished is a terrible perversion of justice.
OSI, the Justice Department's Office of Special Investigations, has a unique mission: track down and prosecute Nazi criminals in the United States. Over half a century after World War II, OSI estimates that there may be hundreds of Nazi war criminals still at large in America.
The overwhelming majority of Nazi criminals who came to the United States after World War II got here the old-fashioned way, by lying about their wartime pasts. It was quite easy to get a false identity to help one get away.
But some of the worst war criminals had help from powerful friends. Aleksandras Laleikis was chief of the Lithuanian Gestapo in the city of Vilnius. Under his watch, nearly the entire Jewish community was rounded up and executed.
They were taken out in groups where giant pits had been dug, and there 50,000 plus people were shot to death individually.
Decades later, an OSI investigator digging in a Lithuanian archive pieced together the puzzle of Laleikis' illegal journey to America.
For nearly 3 decades, Aleksandras Laleikis lived as the quintessential quiet neighbor in Norwood, Massachusetts.
But it took a 10-year investigation, the discovery of an order condemning a 6-year-old girl to death, and declassified CIA documents to finally get Lelekas deported.
And how is it that the CIA had information about Alexandros Lelekas? We found that the CIA had employed Lelekas in Europe after World War II.
That still secret CIA connection earned Lelekas entry into the United States. U.S. intelligence also worked with dozens of other top-level Nazis.
Senior Nazi war criminals made deals with people who had the power to get them out of Europe, which for the most part were either the victorious allies or church organizations.
Virtually every twist and turn of the rat line can be traced through the travels of SS Lieutenant Colonel Walter Rauff. He went from Italy to Egypt to Syria, then back to Italy, and finally to Argentina, Ecuador, and Chile. It was Rauff who developed the Nazis' first tool of mechanical mass murder.
Before the Nazis developed gas chambers in the camps, they killed many, many Jews by using specially constructed gas vans. Those vans were constructed so that the exhaust could be pumped into the back of the van where the victims were locked up. They died a very slow, excruciating death. Walter Rauff was the man in charge of the gas vans.
As the Third Reich collapsed, Rauff was captured by U.S. forces.
This is Walter Rauff.
This declassified 1945 Army interrogation report on Rauff is clear.
Rauff is considered a menace if ever set free, and failing actual elimination is recommended for lifelong internment.
Rauff wasn't eliminated, just the opposite.
Rauff managed to escape after the war by making a deal or agreement with American intelligence in Switzerland.
William Gowan was a U.S. Army counterintelligence officer in Italy after the war.
There was an official attitude towards Nazi war criminals and an unofficial attitude. And of course, many of us were not aware of the unofficial attitude.
Gowan says the unofficial attitude meant using war criminals as intelligence assets against communist Russia.
I investigated Rauff's disappearance in 1947. We realized that some of these people who were so prominent could not have escaped just by themselves. It was a setup, and they had new identity documents and other assistance that permitted them to escape.
Years later, Rauff himself described how he got away.
The cardinal from Milan helped him find a monastery that had already been used as an escape route during the war, kept him there, fed him and so forth, and then after a period of time provided him with a passport, money, and all the steps needed to flee Italy.
According to declassified CIA reports, Rauff made his way to Damascus, where he joined Alois Brunner working for the Syrian secret police. Their duties allegedly included torturing Jews and political prisoners.
Both Brunner and Rauff exploited their status as supposed intelligence agents, as people who specialized in the dark side of human behavior and information gathering through methods that, frankly, would turn your stomach.
The Nazis were arguably the only real winners of the Cold War, because after the end of hostilities, the democracies and the Soviet Union were squaring off. They lost interest in the perpetrators of the last war.
Later, Rauff snuck into Chile, already a haven to hundreds of German exiles. Living with his family under his real name, he settled into a comfortable middle-class life. Rauff died peacefully in 1984. As this shocking video shows, Rauff not only cheated justice, he died with honors from fellow Nazis who'd also found a haven far from the death camps of Europe. Like Joseph Mengele, Walter Rauff never paid a price for his crimes. Their accomplice in murder, Alois Brunner, may still be alive. Unsolved history could prove where Brunner has been hiding.
There are few mass murderers in history who would have as much blood on their hands as does Alois Brunner. If he is alive, There can be no higher priority for law enforcement than to catch him and bring him to trial.
Next, advanced forensic technology will lead unsolved history to the doorstep of the world's most wanted Nazi war criminal. This envelope, this photo, and new investigative technology could soon solve a half-century-old mystery and lead to one of history's worst mass murderers.
Okay, there we go.
Wow.
It looks like there are some prints.
SS Colonel Alois Brunner was the ruthless deputy of Adolf Eichmann, the man who oversaw the machinery of the Holocaust. Eichmann called him my best man.
If Alois Brunner is still alive, he is without question the most heavily implicated Nazi criminal alive in the world.
Brunner organized mass deportations from Austria, Germany, Greece, and France. He sent hundreds of thousands of men, women, and children to their deaths.
He spent much of the war doing nothing but finding better, faster, more efficient ways to kill more and more Jews. And he was diabolically good at this task.
Alois Brunner was never captured, never killed. He got away.
We can establish that he went, first of all, to Syria and was an intelligence advisor in Syria. We know this from CIA records that have been released in the last few months.
It has long been rumored that Brunner sold his skills as a torturer to the Syrians, but proof has been hard to find.
The Syrian government, however, contends that it does not have Brunner, and essentially it says they've never heard of him.
German reporter Gunther Deschner claims to be the last Westerner to meet Alois Brunner. He says in 1985, a contact in Damascus took him to an apartment on a quiet street and introduced him to a man known as Georg Fischer.
I was sure that this old, crippled man that I saw before me was the once ruthless SS officer who had sent so many tens of thousands of Jews to the concentration camps in the East.
Has Alois Brunner been living in Damascus as Georg Fischer?
It remains to be conclusively established whether Georg Fischer is Alois Brunner.
Rosenbaum needs hard evidence. There have been hundreds of false sightings of Nazis since the war.
I've seen too many cases in which individuals were alleged to be Mengele long after Mengele had actually died. I think it's my job to be skeptical.
Deschner secretly took photos of the man living as Georg Fischer. He also obtained this handwriting sample. Now they may finally prove Brunner's true identity and location. And unsolved history could solve one of the greatest mysteries of the Nazi rat line. We took the envelope to the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Forensic Document Laboratory. Wesley Gross and Barbara Torres have worked together for over 20 years.
Let's see what we got.
For handwriting comparison, we found an SS marriage application Brunner filled out to prove that his fiancée was racially pure.
We will intercompare those two bodies of writings, looking for individual features, characteristics, proportions, spacing, the letter construction, and determine if those features are present on both these documents.
The decades separating the two writing samples complicated the process.
It was a substantially different time frame from the writing that we had that was attributed to Mr. Brunner. That made it a challenging examination.
They decide on 4 tests. 1, check for indentations from different layers of paper on the surface of the envelope to see if other messages appear.
I don't see much in the way of any indented impressions from any other writing.
No. Looks like it's picking up some prints, you think, over there?
Yeah.
They find fingerprints. Unfortunately, no World War II samples of Brunner's prints have yet been discovered. 2, bounce different wavelengths of ultraviolet light off the sample to see if more than one person wrote on the envelope. Each ink would have its own signature glow.
So far, all the inks are reacting the same, which would indicate they may have been by the same pen. Looking at the 9 on the envelope, I think you can see a little bit better on the enlargement here exactly how the letter was constructed, or the number was constructed.
3. Check an international writing style book from the 1940s to help determine the writer's age and background.
When compared with the system characteristics that we had on hand for Austria and Germany, some of those characteristics were in good agreement with those that we found.
That clearly matches Brunner, a positive sign. 4. The handwriting comparison. Part art, part science.
It's not that there's any particular feature in the handwriting that, taken in and of itself, is so unusual as to be just unique to that person. But the combination is what makes it individual.
Every letter and number is carefully examined, along with how they connect to each other. What may be a small dash or dot to the untrained eye could be the key to establishing the writer's identity. They find some major differences.
The number 9, that was a 2-part number, which we did not find in the writings of Mr. Brunner.
But they also find some important similarities.
The capital F was quite similar to the capital Fs that are used by Mr. Brunner in his writings back in the 40s.
After hours of eye-straining examination, there's a final result that's precise, detailed, and mixed. The envelope proved to be a legitimate sample written by a man of Brunner's age and background, but
the conclusion that we arrived at was that we could not determine whether or not Mr. Brunner had produced the writing on the envelope. It very well could have been him. We're just not able to tell. It's the limitations of the examples of his writing that precluded us from making any determination other than inconclusive.
Inconclusive. But we also have this. What happens when we compare a World War II photo of Alois Brunner with the photograph of the man calling himself Georg Fischer? Next on Unsolved History, the world's most advanced facial recognition technology goes face-to-face with the world's most wanted Nazi war criminal. How could it happen? After millions of people are slaughtered in the Holocaust, many of the perpetrators, from prison guards to Hitler's top henchmen, somehow escape.
Some of them got away with Western or American help. They ended up actually benefiting from their crimes.
Dr. Joseph Mengele, the Auschwitz angel of death, lived his last years in the Brazilian countryside. Walter Rauff, inventor of the mobile gas vans, had a successful life in Chile, his peaceful death marked by a defiant salute. Adolf Eichmann, the architect of the final solution, lived in Argentina for almost 2 decades with his wife and children before finally being brought to justice. Alois Brunner, Eichmann's brutal right-hand man, the world's most wanted Nazi war criminal, rumored to be living in Syria. Brunner's hiding place may soon be revealed.
Starts with the eyes, right. It takes distances from the eyes to various points. I see. Well, I'd like to see how that works.
This man claims to be Georg Fischer. Is he really Alois Brunner, responsible for the deportation, torture, and death of hundreds of thousands of people?
There are few mass murderers in history who would have as much blood on their hands as does Alois Brunner.
After the war, Brunner is rumored to have lent his Nazi skills to Syrian espionage and torture. But the Syrian government has always denied his presence in their country. The handwriting on this envelope and this SS document couldn't solve the mystery. The gap in years between the two samples made a comparison impossible. But cutting-edge facial recognition technology could finally uncover the truth. Reporter Gunther Deschner is one of Germany's leading experts on the leadership of the Third Reich. He claims he met Brunner in Damascus, living under the name Georg Fischer.
My guide knocked on the door, and the door opened, and in the door stood Alois Brunner.
Deschner gave Unsolved History this photo that he secretly took of the man who claimed to be Georg Fischer. We took the photograph and an official SS portrait of Brunner to SRD, a leading developer of identity recognition software. Facial recognition is one of the newest tools in security and law enforcement.
The technology is from Identics, and it's called key feature analysis. Right. And it's taking these portions of the face here. Okay. It's the most robust against change. So even if you grow a beard, even if you shave your head, right, these features within this area stay the same.
The software assigns number values for dozens of points on the face, compares them to thousands of images in the database, then instantly pulls up the best matches, rating each possibility on a scale up to 10. If it connects Alois Brunner with the man claiming to be Georg Fischer, we can finally unmask his true identity and location. First, to check its reliability, historian Daniel Martinez has SRD put the system through a few tests. Daniel goes to Las Vegas's Bellagio Resort and Casino to see how facial identification works in crowded public conditions, with himself as the test subject. The Bellagio surveillance room oversees 20,000 cameras connected to dozens of monitors. A 20-year-old photo of Daniel is entered into the database, joining tens of thousands of other images and identities. Can the software comb through its files and connect today's Daniel with his younger self?
So where do you want to put me?
We'll set you right here.
Okay.
Now we will be checking Dan to see if he is a suspicious character.
Modern Daniel and young Daniel don't seem to have a lot in common. The search takes less than a minute.
And there will be several people on here. It's going to bring up the most people that resemble you.
The match, 9.6 out of 10. That equals virtually 100% certainty.
So even if you are a Nazi or if you're a card cheat, this system will tell us who you are even after 20 years.
Now we go back to SRD and to the pursuit of Nazis. One more test to verify the system's accuracy, this time with the young and old Joseph Mengele. Like Alois Brunner, Mengele escaped after the war, eluded capture, and lived under an assumed name.
We've taken Dr. Joseph Mengele, and we've added him to a list of thousands of photos.
After the war, Mengele grew a thick mustache to disguise his identity. He was also rumored to have had plastic surgery. Both pictures are loaded into the database. The computer searches through millions of combinations of key features.
We just found old Mengele compared to young Mengele in just a couple of seconds, and he scored a 6.32.
Now it's time for the question that has haunted victims of the Holocaust and Nazi hunters for years.
If it could be established that Georg Fischer is alive and is, in fact, Alois Brunner, it would be an enormous contribution, both to history and to justice.
Alois Brunner's SS photo is loaded into the database. Then the photograph of Georg Fischer.
Let's do an eye alignment on that. Open this up. Save the alignment. Start the search.
This is a bit suspenseful.
Will the old man living in Damascus connect to the world's most wanted war criminal? The poor quality of the photos and the years that passed between them make the test all the more difficult. But within a minute, the computer does its work.
Okay, there we go. You guys scored 8.1 match against Brunner.
Wow. That's a remarkably high score.
An 8.1 score equals 95% certainty. We now have concrete scientific proof that Nazi war criminal Alois Brunner has been hiding in Syria. It's a breakthrough in the pursuit of justice and accountability. Without access to the country itself, it's difficult to determine whether Brunner is still alive. But now we know where to look. And we know it's important to keep looking. We track the Nazi rat line across continents and across the decades. But it also leads to a secret German settlement that's been linked to torture and murder. Next, Unsolved History uses space technology and testimony from a survivor to discover the truth about Colonia Dignidad. Unsolved History is hunting Nazis.
During the Second World War, the Nazis and their cohorts committed the most abominable crimes in recorded history. Crimes so gruesome that they almost defy belief. Afterwards, they got away. And they still are getting away.
That injustice continues to this day. But what about Nazi influence and crimes? Is that chapter closed to history? The Nazi creed seems to live on in a secretive community in Chile called Colonia Dignidad. The State Department, the CIA, and human rights groups have all linked this German settlement to brutal interrogations, enslavement, and dozens of deaths.
It was used as a place to reproduce Nazi ideology.
Amnesty International, the United Nations, and the Inter-American Court have been investigating allegations of atrocities at Colonia Dignidad since 1971, and we continue to do so.
The colony was founded in 1961 by former Nazi officer Paul Schaefer and several hundred followers. When a 1972 coup overthrew Chile's government, General Augusto Pinochet quickly had thousands of dissidents arrested or killed. Dr. Humberto Lagos is a social advisor to the Chilean government.
The testimonies that we've heard and that the United Nations has gathered have proved that Colonia was set up as a concentration camp.
Chile's National Truth and Reconciliation Commission confirmed that Schaefer used his Nazi training to turn the settlement into a torture center for the dictatorship.
There were about 150 prisoners taken to Colonia, and about 45 of them at least disappeared from there. The majority of them were killed in Colonia. It was used to experiment very brutal torture on prisoners. That's where Schaefer was able to share his Nazi experience.
This U.S. Embassy report cites Colonia Dignidad's claim that it's the victim of crazy accusations. But Unsolved History found a colony victim with direct personal testimony. Dr. Luis Peebles is now a university professor and psychiatrist in Santiago. In 1972, he was a medical student arrested for protesting the Pinochet dictatorship.
They tortured to me. I was in this sort of a metallic bed. I was tied in with my hands, with my legs, and they were applying to me electricity all over my body with different kind of little electrodes.
Dr. Peebles has never forgotten the sight of the man he says directed his torture.
I saw the face of Paul Schaefer very clearly. I could say he was Paul Schaefer without any doubt at all.
Colonia Dignidad is located on 30,000 well-guarded acres carved out of Chile's raw landscape.
Because Colonia Dignidad is physically isolated and the officials refuse to cooperate with us, it is difficult to know what is really happening there.
For a closer look, Unsolved History got a view from above. Space Imaging operates the world's most advanced civilian satellite for photographing and mapping the Earth. Flying 423 miles above the Earth's surface, it orbits the globe every 98 minutes. A special pass over Chile produced these high-resolution images.
From the near-infrared imagery, the forest plantings stand out very distinctly. It's very well organized, very well manicured, typical German-style forestry operation.
Timber, farming, and mining operations help fund the settlement. Advanced security helps protect it.
There was controlled access, there were some fences, there was a gate, and there were some buildings near the gate that could be part of a guard force or a quick reaction force.
This orbital view reveals new details about the scale of the colony, but it can't take us behind closed doors. Only those who have lived inside really know what goes on beyond the gates. Jose Efrain Vedder recently escaped from Colonia Dignidad. This is the first time he's shared his story. Jose says when he was 2 months old, his poor parents brought him to the only hospital in the area, at Colonia Dignidad. He never saw them again. He was raised in a barracks by a surrogate German mother. He says when he started to complain and ask about his real family, he was drugged to keep quiet.
Man sagte mir, das sind, damit ich für meine Gesundheit.
They started injecting them once every week. They did that so I would be submissive, so that I wouldn't say what I was thinking, so that they would have me under control.
Jose says that when he was older, he heard of a high-ranking Nazi who had visited the colony.
He was extremely gross in the way he talked. And they said he had killed a huge number of Jews.
And he heard the colony's leadership talk about an American who disappeared at Colonia Dignidad. Boris Weisfeiler was a mathematics professor at Penn State University. When he wasn't teaching, Weisfeiler loved to take long hiking trips in exotic parts of the world. His 1985 visit to Chile may have led to his capture and death. A State Department document reported that Weisfeiler was captured by Colonia Dignidad militia. Source saw Weisfeiler inside Colonia. He was being held in animal-like conditions and tortured. The reason? He was mistaken for a Nazi hunter spying on the settlement.
I heard that he had vanished here in the colony, that his tracks had been erased here, all the way to the colony, that he was killed here in the colony.
Weisfeiler's case remains officially unsolved. His body has never been found. Jose Vedder escaped Colonia Dignidad, yet he's haunted by what could still be happening to people inside.
They don't kill people with gas, but the way they treat you with electric shocks, all those things, that makes them Nazis. They are Nazis.
It is imperative that we continue to investigate Colonia Dignidad, not just about the past, but what is happening today.
Democracy was gradually restored in Chile during the 1990s. An arrest warrant was finally issued for colony leader Paul Schaefer. He's now in hiding, but like so many other Nazis, Schaefer has avoided punishment. Joseph Mengele, Walter Rauff, and Alois Brunner never paid for their crimes. Even now, dozens, perhaps hundreds of Nazi war criminals may still be alive, still free. Is it too late for justice?
The people who murdered millions of Jews in Germany, if they're still alive today, they are as guilty as they were when they pulled the trigger or when they opened the gas valves. And if we can find them, they ought to be caught and tried and brought to justice.
There's an even more important reason to pursue these people even into old age. By prosecuting Nazi criminals, even into their 80s, we send an urgent message to the would-be perpetrators of war crimes, genocide, and crimes against humanity in the future.
We can't bring back the victims of the Holocaust, but we can keep alive their memory and the cause of justice. That's the best way to serve the past and make sure history never repeats itself.
You can get the Unsolved History program you just saw on home video. From ballistics to bone analysis to geomagnetic imaging, forensic science is now putting history to the test.
For only $21.95 plus shipping and handling.
You can stay on technology's cutting edge. Have this episode of Unsolved History, nearly an hour in length,
delivered on DVD. To order, go to discovery.com or call 1-800-509-5544 because there's no thrill like Discovery.